Good morning. Welcome to the Aspen Chapel on a beautiful morning. I want to interrupt all your great conversation. I always appreciate the energy before worship service on a beautiful day in Aspen. We're grateful that we are having a beautiful day, and of course, we do want to be very sensitive to those people who had a bit of a challenge and a struggle down valley. We want to think of that throughout the service from time to time, and grateful for all those people who are helping. When we went to, I was a 4th of July concert, and someone said, "Did you get the warnings on your phone about the power outage?" And boy, I thought, oh my word, what are we going to do? But here we are, and we're grateful that people have helped so much, and we are very sensitive to those people who have lost some lives, not only in our valley here, but in other parts of Colorado. There's 10 or 11 forest fires going on. So our prayers and thoughts are with everyone who have been challenged by this and who are also helping. So welcome. We also greet people on our online and live streaming this morning. I understand, I've been exaggerating a lot of that, but like I said, we're 3 or 4 million people now, but I do think, I do understand in the course of a week, there's a couple hundred people who are tuning in, and I think we have around 40 or 50 people who are live streaming on average on Sunday morning. So welcome to all those people as well. If you are here for the first time, we want to welcome you. If you've here been coming a long time, then we're grateful for that. We thank Shelley Franklin, who comes in here this morning, and she just puts this together. Beautiful flowers. Thank you, Shelley, with the... And ask Shelley, she always tries to accommodate with our theme. Our overall theme for this past month has been, how do we respond? How does a spiritual community respond to the world? And that's definitely an ongoing subject, and that's given to us by our chaplain, Nicholas Vesey, and we welcome him if he's online at 7 or 8 o'clock tonight in England. Maybe he's watching Wimbledon and not doing the... Yeah, I don't know. But he has been gone for 4 Sundays. I'm grateful to be filling in for him during that time. And he will be back next Sunday, so we welcome him back for then. There are a number of announcements in your bulletin. Please do note all of them on the back. I am not going to mention all of them, but please note if you have any question about any announcement, just ask anyone around the chapel or myself. A couple things that perhaps aren't on the bulletin or I want to emphasize is Ducky Derby. You can go to duckyderby.com or something, and it's by the Rotary, and you can select the Aspen Chapel, so your direct donation will go to the chapel through that Ducky Derby. We're not selling tickets directly here as we've done in the past, but if you do get it and go there and put Aspen Chapel, obviously you have a much greater chance of winning the $10,000 that is the prize. I say that every year, but you all keep laughing at that every time. I'm not too sure why. Tonight, I want to give attention to the flyers, I think. Well, maybe they're not on your seat, but there are flyers in the back about the off-Broadway play here tonight, which is simply entitled The Christians, and it's a little over an hour and 20 minutes or so. I attended it on Thursday night here, and I think it's valuable because it is about an evangelical church who's going through some controversy, theological controversy, and I think it's good because people need to deal with these subjects. But it is, again, on a level that presents that kind of viewpoint. For us as a chapel, I think we've become broader than what that might present. But I do encourage you to attend. It's 7:30. Tonight's a well done. Tom Ward, raise your hand. He's a great theater expert here. And so he would have some comments, too, if you'd like to know, should we go or not go. But I encourage you to do it. It's $25. Sunday school with Heather Rydell will be excused in a little bit, and another assistant. So if we have some young people who would like to avail themselves of Sunday school, they can do that. One other thing I'd like to mention that's not on the bulletin is some of you know Sandy St. John, and I know some of you are very good friends of Sandy St. John. Her memorial service, which I will be helping with, will be on top of Aspen Mountain at 11:30 this coming Saturday, and she's been a long-term resident of Aspen, and her memorial service will be then. Monk's coming for a week on July 22nd. It's always a very meaningful time. We thank Lexi Potamkin for bringing them here. Another one is the Summer Gala, August 6th, in the evening at the Cooking School of Aspen. And it's a great time to have a great community event for the chapel and a fundraiser. So do avail yourself of that. So it's great food and great friends and nurturing this great chapel for going. You know, we've attended an awful lot of services of other churches around the country since I've been, I don't know whether to say retired or semi-retired, but I'm grateful to be helping out. In either case, this chapel is very unique, and I appreciate it more even since retirement, may I say. And speaking of great friends, we have some great friends here today. And just coming at the last minute, surprising me, a college roommate, John Waples, has came in, and he was I did go to college, and he can attest to it. You know, we were tennis buddies in college as well, and his wife Jan. Haven't seen them for a while, so welcome to you. And really great. No, don't applause, please. He is a good tennis player, though, but thanks. And speaking of great friends, I would like to have another special welcome to a family that's one of the first families here at the chapel when I was starting back in 1878 is when I first got here. And this, I'm going to start with, this is a picture. She's one of our first Sunday school students. Can you all see the little angel? I showed this off to her, and she's really embarrassed. Can you see it? And her mother was one of our first Sunday school teachers and helped with getting the chapel organized. When I got here, there was not a soul here, and then the mazes showed up. But one of the earlier, and they are all here as a family, and they happen to be come back to Aspen. Steve and Kay Mays, they now have moved away here, and they live in Albuquerque. Albuquerque, that's how it's spelled. And but they are back for their 50th wedding anniversary. Stand up, Steve and Kay Mays, and give them a hand. And they're with all and the rest of the family stand up too. The whole family is here. I'm godfather, married. There's son Landon and Kirsten, and that's Kirsten, and they're their children. 50th wedding anniversary. Kay, you were so brave. But thank you for being here. And so it's a very special Sunday for me. More great friends going back in those 1870s. And we've had Ellen Stapenhorst, who's been playing here for quite a while. And Steve came here to help with a memorial service for Bob Gruder. We greet Bridget, Ingrid here as well. And and then I said to him, I said, well, someday you're going to have to come and do a service. I mean, that was just a month or 5-6 weeks ago. And lo and behold, it was arranged that Steve Stapenhorst came from California to speak. And Steve is mostly known for Ellen's brother. And he will be here. He speaks regularly at a Unitarian Universalist church in Pasadena. He lives in Sierra Madre, California. He has been here and had a music group. He's been here with music, and he started a group here with a number of other my good friends called, that became known as Tanglefoot. And then he went to was in a community play here. And I'm sure, Tom, you must have been part of that play as well, because you've always done that. That was music.
Tom missed that year.
Oh, he did? Music Man. No.
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. It had something to do with music. And he was in that play and got caught up in that and moved to New York, became an actor. He's done a lot of acting in New York and California. And he's a man of many talents. And he, like I said, in one of his acting jobs is that he's been a priest in acting, and he has some other series or something coming up as a televangelist with big hair. But he's not going to be an evangelist today. He's going to be speaking in keeping with our theme, and the title is there. So I'm very grateful to have all these friends here and for Steve to be able to speak. It was not easy for Steve to get here. Those planes were canceled over and over again, 2 or 3 flights. And he said, well, I'll drive. He said, well, you know, we can. And he ended up hitchhiking, and he's got here. People in California, that's what they do. No, he finally got a flight into Grand Junction. Not a great effort to be here. So we thank him a great deal for that. I think I have done all the announcements. Let us begin with some parts of the Unitarian Church and lighting of the chalice. And children may be excused at this time to go down Sunday school with them. There they are back there. They'll take you down there. Anyone, the children, any other time during the service the children get restless, they can feel free to go downstairs for the Sunday school class. That was about 25 minutes.
Yeah. Greg was not kidding about keeping his announcements within 20, 30, 40 minutes. And it's no problem at all. He said everything I was going to say, so I'll just cut the last part of my message off, and we'll still get out of here in time. But thank you, Greg. It is really amazing to be here, all things considered, considering what I was doing when I was here many years ago. But wonderful. And I'll get into more of that later. But right now, in my Unitarian Universalist church, we have a tradition of starting the service lighting the chalice. And our chalice is really our symbol. It's the flaming chalice. The flame stands for knowledge, enlightenment, light, all of those things. Now, to substitute for a chalice, we have a beautiful plate and a candle. The chalice is like an oil lamp. That's the traditional one in our service. So the opening words are from a Unitarian minister, Jacob Trapp. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice within. Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment, open to the sky of the eternal. So we'll light our chalice today for the mystery within, the lighting tool in hand, and the mystery beyond. And it's especially wonderful today to do what I've actually done it many times in many places, and it is really fantastic to do it here in Aspen this morning for all of you. And that is to share a stage, a chancel, a church with my sister Ellen, who I believe is just a totally incredible singer and songwriter. And when I'm doing services without her, it's usually one or two of her songs that get into it as well. So she wrote the next song, and it really is an excellent compliment to the service, and I'd like to ask her to sing it. And I think she'll say yes.
From small beginnings springing up and rain that's coming down, the river starts its humble way, a stream upon the ground. It finds its way by moving, obeying gravity, looking for its path upon the earth, while searching for the sea. It winds its way through gentle hills and meadows lush and green, bringing water to the living things that no one else has seen. Imprisoned by rock and roll until it finally breaks free, and all is changed along the way, while searching for the sea. Nothing to prove, the river flows surely to the sea. So much to give each day along the way, while searching for the sea. When I was young, the way seemed clear, and I could hear the call of the river flowing easily, inviting one and all. It seemed there was no warning of rough waters waiting for me, and all the falls along the way while searching for the sea. But the river's always faithful, and the current's running strong, asking for surrender. Nothing right, nothing wrong. We are here where we belong. I always thought I needed to be something more than I am. I changed my way 1,000 times, trying to make the perfect plan. But the river never gives up. It flows until it's free, finding home along the way while searching for the sea. Nothing's free. The river flows surely to the sea. So much to give each day along the way while searching for the sea. Nothing to prove. The river flows and carries you and me. So much to give each day along the way while searching for the sea.
This is from another Unitarian Universalist minister. Her name is Victoria Safford. She works and lives in Minnesota. It's called Map of the Journey in Progress. Here is where I found my voice and chose to be brave. Here's a place where I forgave someone against my better judgment, and I survived that. And unexpectedly, amazingly, I became wiser. Here's where I was once forgiven, was ready for once in life to receive forgiveness and to be transformed. And I survived that also, and I lived to tell the tale. This is the place where I said no more loudly than I thought I ever could, and everybody stared. But I said no loudly anyway, because I knew it must be said. And those staring settled down into harmless, ineffective grumbling. And over me, they had no power anymore. Here's a time, and here's another, where I laid down my fear and walked right on into it, right up to my neck, into that roiling water. Here's where cruelty taught me something. And here's where I was first astonished by gratuitous compassion and knew it for the miracle it was, the requirement it is. It was a trembling time. And here, much later, is where I returned the blessing clumsily. It wasn't hard, but it was unaccustomed. It cycled round, and as best I could, I sent it back on out. I passed the gift along. The circular motion round and round has no apparent end. Here's a place, a murky puddle, where I've stumbled more than once and I've fallen. I don't know yet what to learn there. On this site, I was outraged, and the rage sustains me still. It clarifies my seeing. Here's where something caught me. A warm breeze in late winter, birdsong in late summer. And here's where I was told that there was something wrong with my eyes, that I see the world strangely. And here's what I said: yes, I know. I walk in beauty. Here's where I began to look with my own eyes and listen with my own ears and sing my own song, shaky as it is. And here is where, as if by surgeon's knife, my heart was opened up. And here, and here, and here. These are the landmarks of conversion.
In our prayer this morning, I want to actually begin with a brief moment of silence, just for us to center our own selves and to contemplate what prayer means to us. And that could be a lot of different ways and interpretations of what prayer means, or meditation. But just to do that briefly. And then the prayer I'm going to read, that Steve sent it to me, and I wrote him back in the email, said, this is a beautiful prayer, thinking that it came from one of the Unitarian books, and it's a prayer that Steve actually wrote. And I thought it was perfect, how it's a balance of our praying for that which is a universal spirit there, but prayers are for us as well, and how do we respond to this world, and how prayer motivates us, and how we find ourselves in keeping with the larger picture of life. And of course, we think of all those people who are affected by all the fires. And boy, we have two young people rescued in Thailand. Hopefully that four people. Thank you very much. Encouraging. What an ordeal people have to go through, and our hearts go out to them, and hopefully that motivates us to help whomever we may see from day to day. So a moment. Even saying the word, let us pray, puts ourselves in a different place. Breathing in, breathing out, knowing that breath means spirit. We pray for guidance. We hope for inspiration. We try to use the lessons we learn to bring us closer to being the best we can be, to open us to the spirit of a loving, forgiving community. We pray for ourselves and for others, especially in times of conflict, turmoil, and pain in our communities, in the world beyond, and in our own hearts. We ache to respond to that world in a way that is positive and helpful. And we may address our prayers to a consciousness bigger than any one of us. But we are also sending them inward to the depths of our own souls, to the place inside us where only truth survives. There, the seeds carried by our hopes, our dreams, and our prayers are planted and nurtured to grow and live in our actions, to shine in the human relationships that give life to our beliefs and our faith. From that deep place within, we may indeed create what we pray for, because our prayers are not random desires, but rather they are an expression of our commitment to finding the best within us and others. May this be so. And let us say together, Amen.
My older daughter, Katie, she's 19 years old. She's now going to be a sophomore at Kenyon College in Ohio. And of course, she drives herself if she's driving. She is having a wonderful time this weekend, her first weekend with friends at our house without us. One moment. She's okay. She's okay. Actually, she might be watching. I don't know. Hey, Katie. A couple of years ago, when we were still driving her to high school, she was into very much a country music mode, and she was listening to the country station in Los Angeles. We're not really big on country music in Los Angeles. They always ask, what country? And along with the beer and the trucks and the, quick relationships and whatever else typifies country music, this song was going on by country singer Tim McGraw. And I said, oh my God, that song is a message. That song, it's something like the Ten Commandments. You know they're all good, but you have to be reminded now and then. And this song is actually written by Lori McKenna. It made into a super country hit by Tim McGraw. But Lori wrote it, and I thought that's such a great message, and I think it fits very well with what I'm going to say today. You know there's a light that glows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind. Go to church, 'cause your mama says to. Visit Grandpa every chance that you can. It won't be a waste of your time. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb. Always stay humble and kind. And when the dreams you're dreaming come true, and when the work you've put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from anyone. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying, so always stay humble and kind. Know the difference between sleeping with someone and sleeping with someone you love. I love you is no pickup line. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you've got mountains to climb, but stay humble and kind. And when those dreams you're dreaming come true, and when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. When it's hot, eat a root beer popsicle. Roll down the windows, turn the AC down. Let the summer sun shine. Always stay humble and kind. And don't take for granted the love that life gives you. When you get where you're going, don't forget, turn around. Help the next one in line. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie. I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind. And when the dreams you're dreaming come to you, and when the work you've put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride. Always stay humble and kind. Help the next one in line, and always Stay humble and kind.
Thank you, Steve, Ellen, and Susan. Thank you. We're glad that Susan is here as well. She evacuated to Paonia for a little while, and I know Bob Albright and other people had to leave their places here who are part of the chapel this morning as well. So, again, our hearts go out to you. There's going to be a song we call it Song of Aspiration that they're going to do, and that is from the Unitarian Church. And I heard Ellen sing at the Unitarian Church in Carbondale, and she has sung it here before, and they're going to do that. But just a brief, again, pause as we are doing our best to contemplate how our response is to the situation in the world around us, especially in our valley. Now, Steve mentioned in that reading, one of the responses is not only be caring for those people who are in need, or if I had to move out of them, I don't do very well when things aren't going well, or something's broken, or when they said, boy, leave their house, I have no, I don't do well. But that is the situation. And one thing that's also very difficult, because Steve mentioned in that reading, and that was forgiveness. I mean, being humble and kind, but to really actually try to do that in our lives. And Carolyn would know, when I'm driving in the car, I am so humble and kind and gracious to all those people who are driving around me and abusing the roundabout. I am so patient with that. I am another person. I'm angry at people who don't follow the rules, or are taking advantage, or being selfish in what they do. How, what I'm getting to, forgiving those people who, by accident or otherwise, started these fires. How do we do that? But I think that's the key part of our message. We contemplate.
When we got our evacuation order, the very first people we heard from were the chapel, by phone and by text, reaching out to see what we needed. And I know everyone has been keeping us in their hearts and in their prayers, and I'm just so grateful to be part of this community.
Laurel, and I did hear that you had to be evacuated. Anyone else? Who else had to do something, be evacuated? We got some other people, but Bob, you did, and okay. So, okay, that's enough of that. You go on to the Song of Aspiration.
So this is a song, as Greg mentioned, a fairly frequently done song in the Unitarian fellowships. It's called Spirit of Life, and the words to it are in the bulletin, and we're going to sing it through twice. So. Because it's the chapel, I'll tune. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shade of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shade
those whom I've known for 36 to 48 years. Those particular figures are from the time I arrived in Aspen 48 years ago to the time I left Aspen 36 years ago. Kind of odd to see me. It's odd to be here in the pulpit at the Aspen Chapel. It is just a little bit odd, but wonderful and fantastic. And I am so thrilled to be here with Greg, whom I have known for exactly that amount of time, actually. That would be the longer period of time. So when I arrived in Aspen on Labor Day of 1970 as a young folk singer, I didn't know if I'd need these. I don't know if I do or not. As a young folk singer, I would not have predicted that I'd be here on July 8th, 2018, in this pulpit. But I wasn't predicting very much at the time. I came to sing in the glorious Rocky Mountains, so I did. One song at a time, one show at a time, one place to live at a time. I was dedicated to music, but what that looked like just unfolded in front of me. There was no master plan. But I might have missed a clue regarding my future in the pulpit. Folk singers preached. We sang about injustice, prejudice, poverty, war, and told you how to fix every one of those. And if it didn't work, we sang some more. If that didn't work, we sang louder. And at some point, many of us stopped preaching, thinking we might be done. Oh, gee. We were so wrong about that. We are not done. But I have a very hard time these days singing about the news. I'm aware, concerned, angry, scared, but I don't pretend to have anything new or different or enlightening to offer on that count. Much greater minds than mine are looking for answers, for the best response to a world that often seems to be tilting dangerously. So I'm going to talk about a different slant on that. I'm considering what shapes our response to the world around us, how we as individuals have unplanned encounters throughout our lives that have a profound effect on our principles and on our spiritual ethical selves. Yogi Berra's classic line, "When you come to a fork in the road, take it," which seems nonsensical on its surface, actually makes a lot of sense. We don't really know often what the next choice, we don't make the next choice consciously, but our life unfolds in front of us. Every fork in the road can lead to the next unexpected lesson, like listening to country radio and hearing Tim McGraw sing Humble and Kind. In matters of the spirit, I pretty much followed my heart as well, just as I did in music. I left the Catholic Church of my youth because, as a trusting kid, the priests and nuns were scary, and the rules were simple. One, you, 10-year-old Steve Stapenhorst, you must be like Jesus. Number two, you can't be like Jesus. Jesus was God. Number three, don't ask questions. Religion involves mystery. Mysteries beg questions. Humanitarian and scientist Buckminster Fuller once said, "Most of my advances were by mistake." You uncover what is when you get rid of what isn't. We'll hear more from Bucky a little bit later. Now, there are many that leave the church that they were raised in, never want to step into another church, but religion, religious people continue to intrigue me. After years of visiting a variety of churches, I joined a Unitarian Universalist church in New York City. And if your primary exposure to Unitarians comes from Garrison Keillor's years of quips on Prairie Home Companion, a very brief explanation. The Christian Unitarian movement began to be accepted in the late 1600s in Poland and Transylvania. Garrison may have missed some jokes about its birth, and it was based on a belief that there was one God, that Jesus was a human being inspired by God, contrary to the Trinitarian view of God as three distinct people, all of which we call God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Between that time, or before that time rather, before the Protestant Reformation, those with Unitarian beliefs were often prosecuted. And the Universalist movement, beginning about 100 years later, believed that all souls spent eternity with God in heaven, that a loving God would never create hell. So there was universal salvation. Increasingly, as these movements grew in England and America, they became committed to the common truth in all faiths and less attached to the dogma of their history. They merged in 1961, and that was the birth of the Unitarian Universalists, which we can popularly call UUs. I have a tennis partner who wears a hat with the letters GAP, and during our first match years ago, I found out that it wasn't from the clothing store, that it stood for God Answers Prayers. And of course, that led to a discussion of religion. Listening to me talk about my church, my born-again friend was incredulous and asked, "How can you go to a church that tells you you don't have an afterlife in heaven?" I said, "George, I didn't tell you that at all. My church doesn't tell me that at all. I just believe that, and in my church, it's okay if I believe that." UUs don't really have required beliefs or a lot of rules, except to respect every person's beliefs as we engage in a responsible search for truth and meaning. Seems to me that that's exactly what goes on here at the Aspen Chapel, with Nicholas Vesey, Greg Anderson, both exploring spirituality rather than dictating it, allowing everyone to find truth and meaning in their own way. Here, in this room, you are not new to taking a broad view of religion. And I want to take you a little bit further out to the unexpected sources that are not considered religious in nature that can, in fact, end up being religious in the deepest possible way. Paraphrasing Nicholas, I hope, Nicholas, if you're watching, I hope this is accurate. Experience is being in the middle of a holy mystery, and understanding is the result. And here's a quote from Nicholas. As he said, "We are using understanding and experience to work out our place in the world." I couldn't agree more. In the 1960s, I was engaged in social work in Baltimore's inner city as a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. I marched through the streets of Baltimore next to Catholic priests Philip Berrigan, Dan Berrigan. In the home of their friend and fellow Catholic artist Tom Lewis, I had my first Maryland crab feast, as giant pots of steamed blue crabs were dumped on newspapers and a distinctly Baltimorean form of communion took place. But newspapers under future crab feasts would have headlines with the names of the Berrigans, of Tom Lewis, and many others, as the Catonsville 9, the Baltimore 4, the Harrisburg 7, and more. Among other actions, they broke into local selective service offices and poured blood over personnel records, which was representing the blood shed in the Vietnam War. Later on, they burned draft files with homemade napalm. They were committed to following the teachings of Jesus as they understood them. Very committed. Now, recently, the sign at the Sierra Madre United Methodist Church, just a few blocks from where I live, announced the coming Sunday sermon entitled, "Not a Human Message." Personally, I need a human message. The church I left as a youth did not show much of a human face. I didn't know people like the Berrigans and Tom Lewis until many years later. And now Pope Francis has gone a long way toward humanizing that church, to connecting the mystery of the faith with the reality of people's lives. Religion lives in our human relationships. In the way we live our lives, the way we treat each other, I'm responsible for what I believe, and I'm responsible for my actions. So without the promise of eternal joy in heaven, without the 10 Commandments and the rules that were given to me as a youth that I cannot bend, cannot vary from, what is my ultimate duty to myself and to others? It has been said, and not only by Garrison Keillor, that instead of the 10 Commandments, the Unitarians have 10 suggestions. He was right. We ask questions, we search, we look for things, we uncover things. And I think there are many more than 10. Okay, you're wondering, how does my mom fit into this? All right. Nobody? Well, no. She is the one who raised me Catholic. She promised her German-born Catholic mother that she'd raise her kids in the church, having married a non-practicing Lutheran. If she had married a practicing Lutheran, she would still have had to make that promise. But she gave each of us, 2 older brothers, me, my younger sister Ellen, the choice of continuing in that church or not after the rite of confirmation at age 12 or so. One by one, We chose not. When Ellen chose not to continue, my mom gave a big sigh of relief and said, I kept my promise, now I don't have to go to church anymore. She may have even said, thank God I don't have to go to church anymore. I'm not sure of the details, but what a lesson in unexpected integrity and honesty from my mom. She really believed in living humbly, in following the rules, and taking what life gave you. She thought pretty much that we should sit down and be quiet. Don't call attention to yourself. And yet, I followed my heart into music, performing publicly and frequently as even a teenager. And she loved it, absolutely loved it. She came to every show she could. She was proud of me, and I was, in fact, calling attention to myself. But when life offered her a choice, she kept all of the kindness and the compassion, the concern and love that truly reflected her heart. And she managed to let go of some of the ideas that didn't really fit anymore. When my mom was young, she loved to dance, not perform, just dance. Dance joyfully. Much of her adult life brought a lot of pain and very little joy. And maybe she recognized when she saw me perform that she saw that joy again and was glad to see it. Through music in my late teens, I found myself working with a Protestant church. Now, the priests and nuns in my former life had told me that even setting foot in a Protestant church was a sin. But the people there practiced their religion with warmth and humanity. The minister, a bright guy who became a great friend, once said to me that he was sorry that I didn't accept Jesus as my personal Lord and Savior, but that I was a better Christian than many in his congregation. I had great respect for Matt, so that was an unexpected comment to a 19-year-old, giving me faith in myself as well as something to aspire to, pride and humility. Knowing Matt and the people at that church opened me up to walking through a whole lot of church doors that I wouldn't have otherwise. And then came my 2 years of social work, which I thought might lead to my real career, since, of course, music can't be a real career. My coworkers, all volunteers, were quite inspiring. Many found their joy tutoring kids, working with the families, getting to know the neighborhood characters in Baltimore's gritty inner city. I wanted to feel that way, to embrace the community, to feel that connection, as most of our team did. I was disappointed with myself. I felt guilty. I felt confused. Social work, at least in that form, was not for me. That was clear, but I didn't feel good about it. Now, right at that moment in my life, don't even know how I happened to do it, I picked up The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand's first novel. Couldn't put it down. Stayed awake half the night, often reading it. Here in this page-turner full of intrigue, double-dealing, sex, politics, and power was Howard Rourke, a brilliant, creative architect who was challenged to not do his best work because, well, his best work didn't really conform to the lowest common denominator that architects were supposed to perform to. And if he prevailed, the folks who created ordinary work, aiming for acceptability rather than brilliance, were unfairly passed over. When I told my mom I had read The Fountainhead and loved it, I can hear her voice to this day. Oh, Stephen, you don't believe that. My parents gave me very powerful moral grounding. So hearing that didn't feel good at all. But I had been stuck in my mom's view, feeling guilty because I wasn't satisfied just going along. In its purest form, I responded to Ayn Rand's message that I should make my own goals, that people are not all the same. Rand said you should not sacrifice yourself to others and not use others to further your own success. She once said, a creative man is motivated by the desire to achieve, not by the desire to beat others. Some are better at what they do, and they should be rewarded, not expected to move aside in the name of fairness. If Ayn Rand had only stopped there. If you're familiar with her ideas, you're likely on my mom's side right now. As I read more of her writings where she detailed her philosophy And even in her hugely successful novel, Atlas Shrugged, she showed the truly heartless way that she applied her ideas. I moved into my mom's camp as well. But a simple lesson I took from the Fountainhead, that talents and skills are for us to use, that it benefits everyone if we each do our best, was something I needed to help me see how success and service, pride and compassion might all fit together. It helped me understand that I could have compassion without being in the trenches. My mom taught me humility. Howard Rourke, I guess, taught me pride. And from both, the difference between sacrificing yourself to others and serving others. And then there's Buckminster Fuller. Bucky to everybody. Architect, scientist, inventor, designer, author, philosopher, humanitarian, and truly humble human being. When he was 32 years old, a young, aspiring architect, he lost his job as head of an innovative building firm and didn't know how he'd support his wife and young child. 5 years earlier, his first daughter had died at the age of 4. Life was overwhelming, and that led him to thinking that suicide might be the best solution for himself and for his family. At that moment, as he told it many times, a voice said to him, "You do not have the right to eliminate yourself. You do not belong to you. You belong to the universe. Your significance will remain forever obscure to you. But you may assume that you are fulfilling your role if you apply yourself to converting your experiences to the highest advantage of others." Now, when people hear voices, many of them are not quite as long as, all of them don't use such big words and long run-on sentences. However, it worked for Bucky because the rest of his life, he worked and lived in service to humankind. As a scientist, Bucky talked about the vastness of the universe and how we were so small in the cosmic sense. And then he turned it around to the extraordinary miracle of human life, how each of us has that capacity to create, to expand the boundaries of understanding, to live vivid and meaningful lives. The idea that we are both insignificant and ultimately magnificent made sense to me. Pride and humility, success and service, all part of a full and responsible life. A little personal story here. In the late 70s, Tanglefoot, the band that Greg mentioned, and Jerry and Ellen and I were all a part of, and 4 others, we played at a club at a hotel in Minneapolis. There was a conference going on in the city. Bucky Fuller was a main speaker, and he was staying at our hotel. I heard him speak. Then I ran into him in the lobby, and I said, "Come to our show." Of course. He did, of course. He sat in the front row. His focus was total. He was absolutely absorbed by what we did. It was surreal, playing with him right in front of us and afterwards listening to his effusive praise. Buckminster Fuller's life was touched by our music, by my music, pride and humility. One of my very brainy older brothers had tried to explain Bucky Fuller's ideas when we were both teenagers. Mostly didn't really sink in. My experience with him came through Werner Erhard and the S training. So if I lost you at Ayn Rand, now that I've added Werner Erhard, I'll just give you a second and you can decide whether to stick with me. Okay, good. Thank you for staying. Yes, I did Est. Yes, it changed my life. Yes, it was good. Werner's observations of human behavior, his brilliant package of psychology, philosophy, and human reality were, again, just what I needed when I encountered them. I watched both of those brainy older brothers I mentioned. I watched both of them deal with devastating, life-killing mental issues and felt that if I ever needed counseling or therapy, I was cooked. It wasn't worth going on. I saw their lives. I thought, would I choose that? Wasn't sure. After Est, I looked at therapy or any form of self-examination as a totally positive opportunity to grow and learn. It turns out that self-awareness is a good thing. And beyond the insights during the training, it opened me up to what I experienced from that moment on, to accept rather than judge, to see fear and doubt as legitimate and important feelings, but not let them stop me from moving on, to know that I counted pretty much as I thought I did. Werner Erhard, Bucky Fuller, both really saw the world in a similar way. The universe is vast and mysterious, but being open to experience will help us understand and accept our unique place in that universe. Nicholas again, we are using understanding and experience to work out our place in the world. Bucky and Werner both conveyed the message that each one of us, warts and all, is a whole creation, just what we are supposed to be. And all this stuff around us, that's just what it was meant to be as well. It's just easier to allow or create change if we start from where we are, rather than fighting reality, thinking we have to be different before we can be whole. But for all the times I spent in EST seminars, all the time I heard Werner Erhard speak, there's nothing I remember more clearly than a moment during a lecture when he paused answering a question, and more or less throwing it off as an aside, he said, in the end, it's all about service, but you're not going to get that yet anyway. Then he went on with his talk. Like my mom telling me I did not like Ayn Rand, to this day I can hear Werner's voice. In the end, it's all about service. And if I put those two voices together, I think the message is kind of the same. We learn from what we find along the way. Our spiritual selves grow from human experience. I am grateful for Matt Meyer, for Philip and Dan Berrigan, for Bucky, Werner, Ayn, and Mom, and so many others along the way. When I come to a fork in the road, guess I'll just take it. And there's probably a Unitarian Universalist expedition somewhere doing some serious spiritual archaeology looking for more than 10 questions. And I am confident they'll find it. And when I find out, I'll get back to you.
Thank you. And thank all of you for being here, and thank you for your gifts and offering during this offering. There is a donate button on live stream as well. And as you say, for us to serve is for your help to do that, because we serve people every day.
As we prepare to leave this morning, a few things to ponder. From Bucky Fuller, I'm not a genius. I'm just a tremendous bundle of experience. From Werner Erhard, life works when you choose what you got. From Ayn Rand, if you don't know, the thing is not to get scared, but to learn. From Lori McKenna, let yourself feel the pride, but always stay humble and kind. And this is from an unknown source, but it's words that the last couple of years have really stuck with me all the time, and I would like to offer them to everybody in every roundabout in life who encounters the crazies. Be kind to everyone you meet. They've probably had a bad day too. And from my mom, it's what I do. I'm a mother.
Thank you so much, Steve, Ellen, Susan, and all the people who have given our host for our reception. Please do join us. An extension of our service together is our reception out in the beautiful garden, and greet one another. And do give a special greeting and wish the Mazes happy 50th anniversary. And remember all that they did to help the things get going here at the chapel as well. Don't say anything to John Waples or ask him what I was like in college or anything like that. Don't do that. And so, again, please join us. And now, let us stand for a benediction. And do notice that Susan gave the prelude. Did anyone notice raindrops? We really appreciate that. And then listen to her Climb Every Mountain, a beautiful song. So mingle around in here and listen to the music as well. Now may the Spirit of life and love give you a blessing in your labor, in your leisure, in your resting, in your rising, in your lessons, in your laughter, in your study, in your silence, your going out and your coming in. May we do our part to love and to serve today, tomorrow, and always. Amen. Go in peace.
Amen.